of the Bridgewater Finance Committee meeting for March 13th, 2023. Our first order of business is approval of our meeting minutes. For you that were there at our last meeting, hopefully just take a look. Thoughts, comments, motion?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, MJ.
Second.
Were you there, Brian?
No, I was not.
Does it matter if he seconds on that if he wasn't there?
He can second it.
Okay, thank you, Josh. All right, thank you, Brian. All right, Josh, roll call, please.
Okay. Nate.
Aye.
Julie.
Hi.
MJ.
Aye.
Rig.
I was not there. I'll abstain.
Brian.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
All right, thank you. Our next order of business is public comments. If we do have any public comments, I ask that you state your name and your street address for the record.
Nate, before you get there.
Yeah.
I think we got to call our meeting to order too, right?
Yeah. It's a joint meeting, right?
It is. I have it as my next item of business to open up the joint meeting.
Okay.
On my agenda in front of me.
Keep
So
going.
public comment, anybody? Okay, moving on to our joint meeting with the Budget and Finance Committee.
Right, Dennis.
Is that us?
Yeah, that's us.
I'll call the meeting to the Budget and Finance Committee to order at 7:32. I don't know if Sean George is online or not. I haven't heard whether he can make it or not. So it's just you and I, Bill.
Okay.
We just have the one thing on the agenda.
Yeah.
We don't have any minutes to approve tonight. So, and I know Councilor Wood sent, I don't know how far it got, but I put forth an order a couple weeks ago for the Budget and Finance Committee and the Finance Committee, because your input obviously is very important, to take a look at all the capital and reserve accounts that we have and take a look at the initial language in which they were written and approved going back to 10 years as to when the council started. I think there's about 4 or 5 of them. Take a look at the language, take a look at, are we using it appropriately? Are we using it according to the language of it being set up? And a little look at a little history as to how much money has come into it, how much money has come out of it, and make any suggestions, if any, need be, to the council. So that was the whole purpose of this. We got some information today from Lori, which we appreciate, and I know Bill Wood honed in on the free cash policy, which identifies at least 5 accounts where different monies go to. So I would just ask that as we go through the process, I would ask the Finance Committee. I know we're in budget season and we're going to have a lot of other discussions and votes if the budget gets complicated. At the moment, it seems like there shouldn't be any major issues with revenues and revenue and expenses at this juncture. So that's
sorry. I don't see anything from Lori. Maybe it didn't get to me.
Laurie, did it go to just me or did it go to, you sent me an email earlier tonight. Let me find it.
Yeah, sorry, Bill. I can forward it to you. I thought Michael was going to share it. I think I shared it with Josh, and I think he was going to share it with Deb so he could share with you and John, but I can forward that.
Yeah, please.
Did the Finance Committee get any backup material regarding that?
I have not seen anything, Mr. Gallagher. The only thing I saw was that email that you sent to Mr. Dutton earlier in the week, right?
Yeah, and I don't really expect to get into any in-depth discussions tonight, but I just wanted to introduce to you to the finance committee what I'm trying to get at and what I'm trying to review, so to speak. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. I'm not saying anything's being done inappropriately. I'm not saying we're spending too much money on one thing or the other, or not enough money. I just think that perhaps it's a good time to review this. As you know, we established another fund with the marijuana tax that's coming in, so that, you know, that might take a couple of years to see what that's doing. So as we get documents and stuff in, we're going to look at it as a subcommittee of the council, and I certainly want your eyes, the finance committee's eyes, to look at this as well. But again, just reviewing the language, taking a look at it and saying, oh, geez, maybe we don't need 20% there. Maybe we could reduce that to 15, or maybe we could increase it to 25, or have something clean on record in a couple of months to say it's been reviewed. I think we have a good, good policies in place, and we'd like to keep them as they are.
Can I ask a question? It's Julie. Nate, the thing we got from that said, that Josh sent us, that said it was from Mr. Wood to share with us, the free cash policy. Is that something different?
Nope.
I think
part
that
of it.
was just to, it was just to reinforce what we're talking about tonight, just kind of bringing it up, you know. It was 10 years ago. I remember this.
Right.
Can I jump in for a second?
I didn't know, like, I didn't know when you said, well, we were looking for something else, that this is, because this came at like 354. So I didn't know if that was something different.
So actually, great question, Julie. So if I can just add a couple points to Dennis's points. I like the idea of and it should be done more often. You know, Dennis brought it up this time, but like an annual review or more should be done by FinCom on this topic anyway. And I think it probably should start and initiate in FinCom with recommendations to the council at various points. And of course, the council budget and finance should be fully aware. The other thing you can do once you start looking at the material, it needs to originate in the council, but you can add more reports to what we already get monthly if you want to look at balances or something like that. But the idea, Julie, was, and it was really Tim Fitzgibbons put it together based on some, you know, as one of the characteristics of the whole budget cycle. So when we see free cash, the policy in place is an ordinance, and the finance committee, not the committee, but the finance group should be following that policy and pushing free cash into those 5 or 6 accounts in those portions that's on the policy. I reintroduced this a couple years ago to see if people wanted to change percentages or change, you know, add or subtract. And at that point, there weren't any changes to it.
I think, is this when we met with myself and I think Nate and Kathy Blaze? I think Tim was even there, and Mr.
Probably.
Gallagher and yourself.
Yeah,
and
probably.
I remember.
So as one of the outcomes, Julie, you might want to do is take a look at this ordinance, and as a group make recommendations to you know, change it if you feel that there's a better a portion you know, ratio that you want to use, or add or subtract accounts, that sort of thing.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, this is Rick. I have a question. I'm just curious to know. I know if my memory serves me correct, Council Wood, you had presented this policy a few weeks back. If my memory serves me correct, I guess my overall question is, you know, what's the root cause of, you know, this new policy, these changes that we're looking to implement? You know, are we working with a CPA firm that's advised us that we need to have more oversight? I'm just trying to better understand.
Well, this isn't being brought out because there's been a problem identified at all. This is simply just a review. The most,
Yeah.
These free cash, this free cash policy, as Councilor Wood alluded to, has been in place 10 or 11 years now. The newest piece of legislation that you're probably referring to is the tax on the marijuana income when that starts coming in. That's been the newest capital account, if you will, that's been created to put that money into that account to be used and appropriated like free cash. So when we get the 3% tax on the retail marijuana, we'll get a report from the town manager saying, we got, $50,000 this fiscal year in retail marijuana, and then it'll probably come in as a free cash number, and it would get appropriated this way. That's the newest account that's been established. Other than that, it's probably been a couple years before an account's been created. But this is just a review. It's not being put forward because there's been a problem identified by anybody, an accountant, an audit, or anything. This is just, as Councilor Wood said, this actually should be done on an annual or at least biannual basis. This really hasn't been that since they've been established.
Yeah. Yeah, I just want to add, and I'll try to keep it to like a minute and a half. And Rick's new, and I know Steve's new, and a couple others. So just a very, very brief history. When we first started on the council, free cash was marked at like negative $750,000. And I won't go to explain that. You can call Lori, and she can explain how that happened. It all had to do with taxes of people that weren't paying. And so there was a negative free cash, actually. And so we had snow and ice deficit and whatnot. So the auditors each year, and this is something that FinCom should also take a look at, the auditors each year come up with an audit report. And they take a look at the state of processing and the state of reserves and, the overall financial health of the town in terms of basically everything. And so early on, they said that we didn't have any policies in place, and we had, we had no capital funds at all back when the council first started. And so once we made some other policy changes and took care of the real estate, we started having a free cash flow. It wasn't big in those days. There wasn't a lot of growth. We're seeing quite a bit now because the town is still building quite a bit, so that gets caught up in the free cash workflow at the end of the year, and then becomes part of the regular tax revenue. But so Tim, I think it was 2013, based on the data of the ordinance, put together rules about where this new free cash would go to, and we started building from scratch stabilization accounts for capital, so we could do capital planning, and so we could do instead of bonding or something else, we actually had cash available to do emergency street repairs, or if a boiler went over at the school, they had cash available that they could do repairs for that. And so it was a way to build up the reserves. We run into the auditors now and then. They come and present annually, but every once in a while, the state of Bridgewater is very healthy in terms of reserves right now. And I think that's probably a good reason to take a look at the how we're allocating, and if we're doing maybe some accounts need more, maybe some accounts need less, so the percentages need to change. That's pretty much the history of this.
Right.
Thank you both. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. So this is obviously something, I know that I have 5 bullet points that I've written down here of things for this committee to discuss in the future. I know one of our big questions was, what was the thought process behind this, Mr. Wood, Mr. Gallagher, when we first saw this a couple of weeks ago? Just so your committee wasn't pulling in one direction and we were pulling the other. So it seems pretty clear to me. Do we have any other questions, comments, thoughts? At this point, we won't make any motion. This is old business for the Finance Committee. We'll be getting to the order a little bit later on. But if you do have any more questions for the budget subcommittee, I see Mr. George is here too.
Oh yeah, Sean. Sean, do you have anything you want to add?
No, my apologies for being late. But no, I mean, I think the discussion around, why we're doing the review was definitely good to explain to people. I do understand on the outside looking in, quote unquote, that if you're doing a review, a lot of times it has to do with an issue or deficiencies, but there are probably some reserve accounts out there that we may not even need anymore. So I think this is just kind of cleaning up some things that have been out there for a long time.
And I think my colleagues would also agree. So this goes hand in hand with capital planning. So, you see a 5-year capital plan. There's some accounts that you want to put a reserve out there for a couple of years in anticipation of having a larger expenditure a couple years down the road. For as an example, and I see Mike Dolan's also listening in. So, like at the middle school, I'm sure there's going to be some requests coming down the road. I think there was a number of items that were on the capital plan there, and it's in the millions of dollars, right? So it's not the thousands of dollars for plumbing upgrades and some of the other pieces there. So you can do that a couple different ways in terms of strategy. You can say, okay, so we'll go back to the voters when we ask for a debt exclusion and fund it that way. Or maybe there's still some capacity within our own debt ceiling that we do it. There's a third way which no one likes, which is to take it as an internal debt, which comes right out of the operating fund, reduces services in my mind. Or we can save these reserve accounts and use all or part of that to fund the request. And so at some point you want to say, like our general fund, I forget the name of it now, the general fund reserve is targeted at like 10% of the general fund overall value. So if we're hitting $70 million for our budget season this year, then the general reserve should probably be about 10% of that, at 7 million or so, maybe a little bit less. That guarantees you can get through a big downswing in the economy for a couple of years without layoffs. But it's really the interpretation of this group in total. It's how much do you want in the reserves and where do you want that to go? Because then the other component that we've talked about over the years is, when we look at revenue at the beginning of the season and we say, okay, let's take 1% off the top, or 1.25, 1.5, whatever the number is, then that by its very nature tends to generate the free cash, which triggers a policy, which puts cash into the reserves, which funds the capital planning. So you probably just want to figure out what level you want those funds to be at, and anything in excess you can make adjustments as you need to.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Wood.
So I do have a question. How well the percentages that are listed in those different buckets, how well do they map to the need that we've got, on an annual basis? I mean, is our capital expense and our shortfall actually greater than than what 20? I mean, should that be 40% or 30%? Because we actually have a bigger gap there than we can meet.
Well, it's a good question. I mean, obviously the capital needs in the town on a whole are probably in the hundreds of millions of dollars, particularly with our road. So you're right. The need is certainly greater than the revenue. So the town manager really prioritizes. We will take the free cash when it comes in at the end of the year, and we will allocate it to the appropriate funds. And then all the departments have a matrix, and that we can share that with you too, because there is a 2019 to 2023. I think it's 2026 now. I think there's a capital plan that's out there that goes up to 2026 right now. that'll show you all the needs. And it shows you on there what will be brought forward for this fiscal year and what will be brought forward next fiscal year. Now that might change a little bit depending on priorities, but certainly the need is greater than the revenue. So the town manager prioritizes, which ones will be funded and for that fiscal year. And we approve that as a council, and it obviously comes through the finance committee as well. As you know, you got one on tonight for some vehicle leases that comes out of capital. I think that's on your agenda, or it's on our agenda next week.
It is.
But
It
yeah,
is on it. Yep.
so that's another usage of the capital budget. When 10 years ago, we didn't have this, and then we were eating, operating revenue to take care of emergencies like that. But now we have a sound fiscal policy where we can afford to, replace our engines on a timely basis. We can replace our vehicles on a timely basis, get new equipment for the highway department, and so forth.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on the subject from the finance committee? Okay, not hearing any. At this point too, I'm gonna blame myself for this, because my assumption was that we would also be discussing the capital expenditure policy in joint session this evening, but it isn't set up that way. Is there any way that it's sponsored by Mr. Wood can stick around as a guest, or does that work? Do that?
I can stick around, sure.
I know that's come up now with 2 of our meetings now, so I think we, the committee, maybe put this one behind for more clarification. Okay, that was just my comment, and I'll ask for a motion to take it out of order too. After, do we have to do here?
Motion to take F 2309, is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, but we can't do it as a joint meeting though, Julie.
Oh, because it's not on their agenda, right?
It's not on the agenda.
Not on our agenda, so
Yep.
yeah, Nate's right. We'd have to adjourn our committee, and then I can sit in as a guest if you have questions for me. That's what the point was.
Right, so we're done, right, Bill? I mean,
Yeah.
we're going to meet next Tuesday before the council meeting and take up anything that has been referred. So we'll continue this discussion then too, and hopefully we'll have another joint meeting in near future to we can share our progress about this with the finance committee. So I'll move to adjourn the budget and finance committee meeting at 7:53.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on adjournment? Sean,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
and Dennis, yes. The budget and finance committee meeting is adjourned. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you. We'll talk soon, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Set season.
Thank you.
All right, Julie, if you want to make your motion now.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to out of order to take F 2309 out of order.
Second.
Thank you, MJ. If we could do a quick roll call, please, Josh.
Nate,
Aye.
Eric. Eric. Yeah, we can't hear you.
Eric.
Julie,
Aye.
MJ,
Aye.
Rig,
Aye.
Brian,
Aye.
Steve.
Aye.
Eric, you want to try one more time?
Aye.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, thank
Motion was
you,
approved.
everyone. So next order of business is FY 23-009 capital expenditure policy. We have had some bit of discussion around this. One of the things that happened was at the request or the suggestion, a very good suggestion of one of our committee members, Julie. The language was sent back to the town attorney. It came back with changes, approvals to it. So we should have that in front of us, those changes. And I'm going to open it up for discussion right now. We do have Mr. Wood here as a guest. He was the originally sponsored this policy. So questions from the committee at all?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
All right, through you to Councillor Wood. I'm going to try to recall my question as best I had it from the last meeting. Relating to this proposal, Mr. Wood, what was the genesis behind this, and why is the town having to be the entity that actually has to create and basically implement this policy when it seems like it's an issue on the Bridgewater Rainham School District side of things? As I understand it, and hopefully you can either disprove me or dissuade me of that. I almost feel like this policy should be something that, and I understand it's from an issue that happened between the school district and the town that was alleviated, but this is supposed to be some sort of thing that prevents this in the future. I'm not sure why the town is having to basically take on the burden of this proposal where it's an issue that basically originated with the school district. So I'm hoping you can try to help elucidate to me what the genesis was for this, particularly coming forward to us. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure. So let me say first, I've seen the edits that Jason recommended, and I have no problem with the edits. So you know, in terms of changing it, most of the things he struck out, like the payment middle piece. In terms of, you know, I'd put in general language you might find in a corporate policy, as opposed to municipal policy. So, but to answer your question, so sometimes, and not, I can't say it's always, you know, we're asked to expend or to vote as a town council on a large sum of money that goes towards usually one of our buildings, because the town of Bridgewater owns the buildings or half the high school, and the request comes in from the school committee, and usually it might be something like, you know, expenditure for doors and windows, or you know, the field track replacements, or something else that's been requested. You know, I'm myself, and this is maybe just me, I'm pretty detailed in terms of wanting to know, you know, some background about what the expenditure, and you can see in the council meetings, when we do it on the town side, we can look at, like, and I'll give you an example, the memorial building, you know, that's a multi-million-dollar project. We saw plans, we saw presentations, we saw detailed breakdown of the project items, and other things. And so, you know, when we're voting on an expenditure like that, we often get to see background material. And then it's the town manager's responsibility, who reports to us. It's the town manager's responsibility to work with the finance director and everything to clear all the bills. And usually, you know, we don't see any issues with that. And I can't say over the last 10 years or so, I've seen many issues with anything we voted on this school. But we did have an item come up, you know, recently with the running track. Now, most people won't know or don't know that the day of the vote, Councillor, Eric and I were going back and forth on emails trying to get some more information, because it was the total amount that was requested was split between Bridgewater and Rainham, and we were trying to understand what our split meant and what it was really for, because it had, I think, switched from one project to another, and we didn't have a lot of backup to go with it. And then, so after, and I got to tell you, for that particular item, I probably put several hours in with emails and phone calls and whatnot, trying to get details. And again, it's maybe an isolated issue, maybe a couple others, but in the end, the value came down on the request, and it wasn't like a lot of our work, but it did come down and it changed. We voted on it. We were fairly comfortable with that vote. And then later we learned that the school committee had rearranged their own funding. And I get that. They had, you know, some funds that they needed to use immediately and some funds that didn't. you have to understand, you know, my most of my career is in banking, federal regulations, regulations about payments, regulations about exchanges, things like that. So although I don't say there's no wrongdoing here, I'm not trying to say that, but what happened was, you know, we as a council committed to whatever it was, $600,000, and then suddenly we found out that it wasn't used for that. And so I used to run a payment system for US dollars, and literally when you wire someone money, you're handing them a bag of cash and you may not get it back. And that's kind of, I mean, maybe it was a little bit of an emotional response there, but that's kind of how I felt. We handed another group $600,000 and it didn't get used for the purpose. And that's maybe, you know, I reacted to that emotion a little bit. But there was another unrelated item that I was hoping that either the town or the school could take care of that was related to safety. And eventually it did. It didn't get voted on. But I thought that, you know, looking back at some of the policies, we didn't have a policy that said when the town council votes on something for a capital project or something on the school side, that we're sure that it's actually being used for that purpose. And some of the feedback I got was, once we throw the bag of cash over the wall, it's, you know, we have no control whatsoever. And I get that. And everybody's honest, and no issue between the two groups. But I just wanted to put a policy in place that kind of put a little more control over, before we take a yay or a nay vote, and in tough financial times, it may be a nay at some point. But before we take that vote, we should get some of the information or a package that's like if we were taking it on the town side with the town project, and we could see all the finances and we could see all the presentations and that sort of thing. So you know, the edits here kind of says that the school committee will have a request package. And we do that with CPA too. We see 30 or 40 pages of material tied to $25,000 when there's a CPA request. And so, you know, that paragraph 1 is really just saying, hey, tell us about your project, give us a foothold on why, you know, we're going to do this. And it'll probably make many people more comfortable and give a more positive aspect to the vote. Forget paragraph 2. Again, you know, it was more of, we learned that the money was spent elsewhere. We had to take a second vote. It's being shifted around a little bit. As long as the auditors on the school side are happy, I have no problem with that. But it was a little, again, maybe a little more emotion took place that I found out that what we had voted on wasn't being done, and especially where someone like, you know, we mentioned Sam Baumgartner earlier. He was in full support of the track, and you know, maybe it got delayed. I don't know. Paragraph 3 is just that, again, you know, if we're going to make a payment, let's make sure the payment's being made for a specific purpose. I don't know if that's really control or more of a statement. You know, we're not going to get a receipt back or a confirmation back, I don't think, but it's just more of a policy that says, hey, you know, we're giving you $750,000, go and build the the running track, please, and you know, make all the kids happy. So that's kind of the background of this. And so MJ, did I answer your questions? You're on mute.
Well, I would venture to say it answers my questions, but Mr. Chairman, if you allow me the levity of the moment to say it, that I'm still a little bit irked that we have to come up with this policy, and based upon what you've explained, there's still no guarantee the school district is going to follow through, even though we're giving our written purpose here, just reading the policy alone. We make a lot of promises, we follow through on the promises, but there's no guarantee that the school district is going to do it on their side other than whatever satisfies the auditors. not to pontificate, not to opinionate, but from a logical perspective, I'm a little unsupportive on this because at the end of the day, it just doesn't feel like there's any accountability on the school district side of things, just other than to say, oh, you're going to give us the money and we're going to spend it. It still sounds like this is going to be a situation where if we do vote on something in the council meeting, as we're supposed to, as we follow through, as you explained, we send it over to the town. There still feels to me like there's no guarantee that when we throw that bag of money over the wall, that we're going to have them say, yeah, we spent it for that exact same purpose. We're going to still end up in the same.
Am I the only one who's having like
no,
technical issues?
No, I had that problem at the end too.
I just lost
Okay.
it. Yeah.
So
MJ, you
with
there?
that said, Mr. Wood, and I appreciate you giving me the time to speak, Mr. Chairman, but honestly, I'm willing to say right now, I'm not supportive of voting on this if we have to vote on it.
So my question to you, Nate, would be, I understand what MJ is saying, but I also question to your point, if it's a school committee issue, like, do we have this with other capital projects? I think I asked that same question in the last meeting. Do we, and Laurie, I believe, tried to answer it. So for those that weren't here, maybe I'll ask it again. We have capital expenditures for the Bristol Plymouth project, and I know it's done through an assessment, but how do we know that the money is being used in that capital project, any capital project here in town, not just the school district's money? So I guess, you know what I mean? Why is, because this says capital expenditure policy, but then everything is Bridgewater Rainham School District, Bridgewater Rainham School District, like they're the only ones we have capital projects for. So I don't know what the backup looks like for the rest of the town when it comes to doing capital projects for completion and receipts and the proof after they voted, after the town council or we voted on it. Like, where's the follow-up in other areas?
Yeah, that's a good question, Julie. I don't recall ever having a capital request from BP or Norfolk Aggie or Bristol Aggie, I guess it is. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how they handle their capital projects other than.
And what about other town buildings like the police station, the fire department, or the academy building back in the day? How did we, what kind of proof did we get then that the money was being spent, or any kind of percentage, et cetera, that we're describing here? If you take BP out of the picture and you talk about other capital expenditures in the town, what policy do we have there? Well, what documentation do you see that we, I can't hear.
Well, like on the memorial building, which is the largest item right now, everything is fairly well documented there. I don't know if we've looked at the resources, but of course that was a debt exclusion, I think, right? So, and CPC money and something else, I forget how that was funded. But like in the CPC money, for example, it's very clear that it has to be spent on specific items we voted on. So the grant, and then another example is the grant that's being worked on right now for Styles and Hart. It's for the Styles and Hart. The grant can't be used elsewhere, and so we usually see backup material on those larger projects.
Before or after, or during the completion? Before you give the money, after you give the money?
Before, yeah, before.
So I had actually asked that question, I think 2 meetings ago, and I got the answer that you just gave, Bill, which is when we have a contract for something like this, there are all of the normal stopgaps that would be in place. Is it just the school committee and the way that we do funding for the school that makes it so easy for them to, spend money on something else?
I wouldn't say it was easy, and I wouldn't say that they intended not to do the track. I think that they just readjusted where the funding went to. And so I think, as Julie helped me out with the phrase, excess and deficiency.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think they intended to do, as I understand it, the track work from from E&D as opposed to the original funding. So the dollar amounts are probably similar or the same. And so what we did subsequent, and you saw this, is that the original funding then came back, and it was a couple weeks ago, it was reallocated to something else, so that it matched up, right? So it matched up with what the town council vote was.
Right. I think the track's been on the radar for a long time. And I think as negative as the pandemic has been, my understanding that, as you know, we went from 1 year of being able to give hardly any increase but then they have this COVID money. So then you have other money, you know what I mean? Like all other departments, I suppose. We couldn't have hit it up. They couldn't have hit up the town a long time ago for this. It wasn't there, so the fact that everyone had some excess money, I don't know all the details, but it's nice that everything's finally getting done. Can I ask a question? Does anybody mind if I defer to Mike Dolan on this? Maybe, I know he's not.
I was just going to bring that up, Julie. We do have Mr. Dolan here. He is a member of the school committee. You can bring him on as guest status. Do you have a question directly for him for some information?
Actually, Mr. Chairman, it's Sean George. Can I just pipe in for something for a little bit more clarity in regards to what Mr. Wood said? Is that appropriate?
Yeah, when as a guest, right? For informational purposes.
Yep, for informational purposes only. So just to add some additional information to that, actually the town was notified that the school committee was going to use E&D money for the track and use other monies for the track. That was communicated to the town. Unfortunately, it wasn't in time for the documents to be changed because the agenda had already been sent. But we were never notified by the town manager's office that change was communicated. And in a subsequent budget and finance meeting, we did have the assistant town manager who confirmed that the town was notified that there would be changes for timing, but it was never conveyed to the council during that meeting. So I just want to make sure that everyone has the clarity, correct, everyone has, the full story in regards to that. And I think the other thing I would take into consideration is, even though we've never received capital requests for other school districts that we pay into, that shouldn't prohibit us, if we're going to do this, to expand it to all of the districts, either for today or tomorrow. So I just want to add that and keep it in mind, please.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. George.
Mr. Chairman, quick question.
Yep.
Through you to Mr. George. Mr. George, if I'm understanding this right, it's a matter of basically a crossing of paperwork, as I understand it. So we got the paperwork from the school district saying they were going to use E&D funding, but in the meantime, in lieu of that, we still had the information on a council agenda, and that was the item that was voted on the council agenda. So it was a matter of paperwork crossing, as it were, so that something took place before something else.
So I'll leave it up to Mr. Dolan if he so chooses to pipe in, because I don't want to speak for him. I'm just going to say from my understanding is that the paperwork that was submitted, the school committee had decided to go in a different direction in regards to the track. They don't have to come to us to get approval for E&D money. They do that on their own. Mm-hmm. But that information was not conveyed to us at the meeting, so that what we were voting on is what we all thought was going to be, we'll call it accurate. I don't want it to come across accusatory, but the town manager's office was notified of the change by the school committee. So that was never communicated to us. It could have been, something that maybe we postponed the vote or things like that, but it was never communicated to us. So that's where I just want to make sure that everyone has the full story.
Right. I think there's a timing issue.
Quick follow-up, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. George.
Okay.
Mr. George, this may be getting a little bit more out of my jurisdiction, but as it stands, the town manager's office was supposed to let you folks know about this so that you could change it at the council meeting to take it off the agenda?
Well, I would expect the town manager to make us aware that the school committee, the school committee had reached out to him to say that they were going to make some changes for timing and funding and things of that nature. After that was communicated, I don't know what the council's intent would be, but at least we could have that discussion and that would be put out there. versus confusion in having people come to the next meeting that really didn't understand and making it look like we were given one thing and then something else was done without any of us being told, which my understanding is it's not accurate.
Well, Sean, are you talking about, sorry, Nate, are you talking about when we reallocated the funds to the technology? Because I'm talking about the original vote.
Yeah,
The original vote on the running track didn't have anything to do with E&D at that point.
Right, but what I'm saying is before the original vote, and again, Mr. Dolan can confirm this, the town manager's office was notified that they were going to do some changes in regards to that original ask. That was never communicated to us.
And I think I have my answer. Thank you, Mr. George.
Okay, thank you, everyone. You know, we've spent a lot of time on this, and we haven't even gotten to a new business.
So does anyone need any clarification from Mike or no?
Well, let's hold on a second, Julie. All right, let's let Mr. Dolan have a chance to speak real quick, okay?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. Yep.
Thank you. Just to echo Mr. George's comments, the school committee did decide after our original ask to take funds from E&D to not just do the track, but also the tennis courts. The town manager's office was notified of that, and it has been confirmed it was a timing issue. And I know Lori at 2 meetings ago, Lori, sorry, I apologize. I don't remember how many meetings I've been to or have missed. I think it was 2 meetings ago, Lori's confirmed that to this group. So I get the anxiety that this is causing the council. However, we as the school committee have the fiduciary responsibility over our district funds. So it was a timing issue. Things happen. I'm not blaming the town manager. I'm not blaming the finance committee, the town council. Timing was an issue. We recognize that. So with that said, we did take money out of E&D to do the track and tennis courts. So those are being done. E&D, for those who don't know, is what we would consider free cash. At the end of the year, we have to certify any excess to our E&D account, and only through school committee vote can we spend those funds. So we voted to spend those funds on the track and field, notified the town manager's office of that, and subsequently that was done. I think if I could, it feels a little targeted towards the school district in that it only lists us. We are a part of 3 other districts. I think it should be all school districts if this is going to be something that's done. Whether they've given us capital in the past or not, that's irrelevant. If the policy applies to all. It's not a pick and choose.
Nate, may I say something? Sure. I don't disagree. We can apply it to all school districts, any place. I will say that I think that, and this is again a council, more of a council policy maybe, but you know, the night of the vote for the track, the first vote, not the subsequent vote, the first vote, Eric Moore and I were trying to grab information to satisfy why the amount was what it was. And that's really captured in paragraph 1 of this. And I don't know if it's enforceable. Maybe it's a behavior of the town council that before the vote is taken, you know, it should have more information. Maybe you can't force more information. Maybe we should have postponed it that night, asking for more information. Eric and I were, I think, at the end of the day there, satisfied that we had enough information. The vendor was responding back information through the facilities manager, I think at the time. And I just did a quick search. I can't find the original emails. I can send it to anyone who wants to see it. But I think we were satisfied because the number came down. We made a motion to change the number during the meeting. I know we changed it to slightly, it was about $100,000 difference overall for the pricing. And I don't disagree that once you know, that it could be taken as D&E and someplace else. I think that maybe that was a case of where we rushed the vote, and maybe in the behavior of this process, when we come up with a vote of that size, we need to have, you know, backup information, whether it be district or town. And then, you know, is if it's going to be shifted, if the money is going to be shifted, I would rather see the original vote rescinded, and the money, you know, changed back and then sent back if it's going to do that. But in this case, it was the subsequent one was really a new request for technology. And I don't remember exactly tonight what the original request was. I thought it was Chromebooks, but it was something else. The second request. But on the day of the vote for the track the first time, we didn't have any materials in hand describing what the amount was for. We just had the amount on the page. And so maybe, you know, it's the fault of the council for taking action when they didn't have enough information, or maybe people thought that it was good enough. I don't know. But I don't disagree that it could apply to all the districts. There's 4 municipalities or 4 entities involved here for our government. I'm fine with that.
Mr. Chairman, can I chime in if it's okay?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Rick.
I want to thank everyone for the clarity. Those from the school district, thank you so much for the clarity and making it clear that there was communication with the town in terms of the usage or portion of the usage of the fund.
After the first vote, yes. Just
to something else. I think, you know, I'm on the fence, and here's where I'm at, right? For me, you know, I certainly understand, you know, the spirit of this policy, because, you know, if X dollar amount was allocated for Y, the expectation is that it's going to be spent on Y, and not something else. But let me just be very clear that I acknowledge that, you know, those that are representing the school committee they've done their due diligence by communicating to the town. On the flip side of it, I also hear, you know, MJ's side of it, which is, and everybody else's, which is, you know, if there's going to be a policy, the policy should certainly not be for one school district, but it should be across the board. And I guess my thought process is, you know, if the town council is going to, you know, institute a policy or is looking to institute a policy, perhaps the policy should not only be across the board, not just one school district, but be across the board, but perhaps a dollar amount. So, for example, you know, if $100,000, for example, was allocated for X project, then the expectation is that if that X project isn't going to be made, going to be completed, then that $100,000 should be returned back, and then that institution or that district or that school, whatever it is, can petition again for that $100,000 for a different project. However, if it's $10,000, for example, you know, does this policy, as it stands, does this policy then also put the burden on the district or the organization, you know, to then send back $10,000? I guess, you know, I am certainly on the fence. I don't mind the oversight, and I think everyone, if I'm hearing correctly, the problem is not the oversight. The problem is how this is written, and that if you know, it's only targeted for one institution. So I don't know. Do we, I would like to see this go back to the town council with additional revision that includes all parties, not just the school district, and perhaps include a dollar amount as well in this policy.
Okay, thank you, Rig.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
I would be remiss in saying that at this point, given everything that's been explained,
yep,
I know when this comes down to a vote, I'm more than happy to say for the record that I'm voting no on this, because there needs to be a little bit more policy on the side of the council with which to get this policy to even work. I also echo the sentiments that Ray had said as well. But for me, it's a matter of given the explanation from Mr. George about the paperwork basically crossing more or less in the mail, as it were. My biggest concern is that this policy has to be put in place because something happened prior to that. I personally would like to see the council address the issue going forward, such that if something is going to be conveyed from any school district or any other entity that's asking for funds for capital expenditures, that they are made aware of it as quickly as possible, so that a rescission of a vote doesn't have to actually happen. If it is the matter that the town manager's office had the information prior to this vote by the council, whether it was a revised one or not, my biggest concern is that non-conveyance of information from the school committee given to the manager's office but not given to the council caused the genesis of this policy, which, while it's a great idea, it does need a little bit of tweaking. I myself would encourage it to be brought back to the council for further revision. But at the end of the day, the issue lies with the information not having been conveyed to the council in time for them to either defer it to another meeting or postpone it or rescind the vote. That's why I'm voting no on it. I'd like to see a more systemic approach taken to this before it even gets to this point of a capital expenditure policy.
All right, thank you, MJ. Eric,
Nate, can I say one more thing, please?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So nothing to do with the policy. So as all of you know, or most of you know, I'm not running for re-election, so I'll be leaving the council. And this time I don't intend to join the finance committee, although I find the work pretty interesting. But this is actually a great opportunity for the finance committee. Keep it in committee if you want, but your comments, MJ, are perfect in that, figure out what you think the policy should be. Figure out what you want to recommend, and then make that recommendation to the council so that it can be changed. Recommend some hard edits, or recommend some policy changes, or recommend that this language before you gets scrapped and gets replaced with something else. And maybe what you want to say is that it's really the responsibility of the town manager, before he puts something before the council, to say that, do I have enough information that the council can make an informed decision? Because I just did some searching on the emails, and I think we're confusing two different votes, but in the original one, it was back and forth, not having to do with D&E costs at the point, but the cost of the track itself. And so at that particular vote in 2022, I don't think there was probably a decision yet by the school committee to actually fund it in a different direction. But maybe the policy here, MJ and others, needs to be, restructured so it's really, a town manager, goal, whatever you want to say. And so what I'm saying here is, take the opportunity to figure out what needs to be tweaked. Take the opportunity to figure out how to make it stronger, or take the opportunity to say, this isn't going to work, but maybe we go in this direction, as opposed to a yes, no, up, down vote. And let the finance committee work through the process and make some recommendations. Because what I'm hoping, as I've always said, is that the finance committee is the expert process behind what the finances of the the town and even the schools, in this case, relationship are. Does that make sense?
Okay, thank you. No, it did. Thank you, Mr. Wood. I hear what you're saying. I know we've had discussions in the past about bigger policy things with the Finance Committee. Is there any other quick questions, Eric? Do you have something? Or?
Yeah, no, it's funny because I think a few folks hit part of my thought in the end, I look at this like the whole document's written so that when we approve money, it's spent with what we approved, right? I mean, it's just simply saying, if we approve money, it has to be spent on that item. And honestly, I think if Tony were on the meeting right now, I can remember numerous times where the town changed the direction they were going in, and he came back to the Finance Committee and said, hey, we're not going to use this money for X. We'd like to use it for Y. And then we vote on that. So I think to Mr. Woods's exact sentiment that we probably have some work to do as a committee to come up with something that makes sense. I don't think it's targeted at the school committee. I think it probably should be all encompassing. But generally speaking, if we're not going to spend money on what we vote to spend money on, then we have a broken system. And I don't think it's broke. So I am behind 90% of what's written on that page. I think we just have a little work to do as a team.
Mr. Chairman?
Ray, go ahead.
Can I, rather than taking a vote tonight, yep. In the sentiment of Mr. Wood and Eric just mentioned it, yep. Do you have the ability to maybe assign or see who might be interested in hammering? I mean, this policy is a good framework.
Yep.
So given that it's a good framework, rather than killing it with a vote, yep. Why don't we not vote on it tonight? And then, you can make a decision. I'll be willing to step up and be part of a subcommittee within the Finance Committee to just hammer at this. And then we can then present it, in the future, near future.
No, you know what, Rick, I like the idea. We've done that with things in the past. I think you might have heard Julie allude to the free cash policy way back in the old days, right, Julie? Which is something that we did. We worked on it and we created something. Thoughts on that? What Rick just said. Is anybody else?
Mr. Chairman, can I just speak on one more time on this the capital?
Yep.
So back in 22, this capital order and Mr. Wood can probably remember, it originally came through the committees in November. So it was November of 2021. So the capital requests, and I won't go into too much detail, but the school had provided the town with their list of capital, including the track and whatever. And it was back in November. So I think the original order then was, we talked about in committee, and probably like what Eric said with Tony, and there's other changes. And there was, some questions on the school requests and getting the backup and all that. So this order was it was sent back and it was revised. And I don't know what the original one was. But then it came back for the vote. It came back with a different amount in January, went through the committee and was voted on March 15th. So with that amount of the track and the other items. But anyway, I think because the orders aren't always done too, I think in that March of 22, I don't know who's communicating with who that this money was voted, whether it's the school voting and not communicating quick enough with the town manager's office, or the town manager's office not communicating with the school. But this was voted on the 15th of March. And I believe the school committee took their vote on like March. They take their end of the budget vote on March, maybe 20th. So there was definitely a time frame problem with this particular thing. And I think the school had probably been waiting for 6 months, and they can't actually move ahead without an appropriation. So it was in their mind to say, we got to get this done. And they knew their funds was opening up. So again, I think we have a clear process with the request for capital coming into committee. And I don't know, I can't speak to what happened in between committee and then this order coming on the council vote. I just think it was a matter of timing, and Mr. Dolan's right. After the school committee took their votes, everything communicated to the town manager's office, but that was probably not till the first couple of weeks in April. So, I mean, it was a timing issue. And then as soon as everyone found out Tony was right on it, he talked to Kathy Macedo, he talked to Michael. He's like, oh, this is changing around. And that's when the whole swing of things, I think, came up to surface. So I think, and I'm not saying, where the breakdown should have, could have, would have, but I think we've learned that we're going to take the school capital and put it on its own order, number one. So, and I think all of this is just for transparency and clearness so that everybody's on the same page. And I think that's what's kind of moved everyone to the point where we're at now, to just try to get everything transparent, tightened up and buttoned up. So I don't think it was any malicious thing or anything that somebody didn't do that, wasn't paying attention. I just think the timing issue hurt us in this. And, going forward, I think we've learned that, we're going to have a member from the school committee come in and talk about the capital to, that's the plan anyways, to talk to, which they do, they come in and they talk to both committees before any votes taken. And I think we're going to pull it right off of what the town buildings and the town capital outlay requests are, so that, everything is transparent and everything's clear for everyone. So thank you for letting me speak on that.
All right, thank you, Lori. Yeah, I think that we all agree maybe we have a micro issue of timing here, but the macro issue is policy and policy moving forward. And I agree. I echo everybody. I think has brought up extremely good points in this conversation. I am going to kind of go back to what Rig had brought up last. Putting in what Mr. Wood was saying. Putting some time in here, kind of getting the weeds a little bit when we're talking about, like Eric said, 90% of this overall policy looks pretty good. Would somebody be willing to help? Rig, join Rig.
I'll jump in, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so all we need, I think we need 3 because we would need.
I'll do it as well.
Okay, thank you, Eric. So I guess what we need to do now is right now I'm going to say we're going to continue. Right, that's the right word. This resolution. Do we need to do a motion to set up the subcommittee real quick?
It can't hurt.
Let's make a motion to a subcommittee to evaluate the capital policy.
The capital commission. Okay, thank you. And the members will be made up of Mr. Knoll, Mr. Lango, and Ms. Fago, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And thank you.
If we have a motion, if we could have a roll call, please.
Nate.
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
Julie.
Aye.
MJ.
Aye.
Rig.
Aye.
Brian.
Aye.
Steve.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Josh, did we have a second on it? I know I made the motion, but.
Yeah, MJ was our second.
Okay, thank you, MJ.
Yeah.
Sorry, I wasn't.
I thought I heard MJ. Okay, thank you, everyone. So obviously, if you're going to meet, you're going to have to post it. Being a subcommittee, just loop me and Josh in whenever you have it, when you want to do that.
Yeah, I got all the faith in the world that MJ will help us through all of that. We'll rely on that, and we'll definitely work it through, Josh. So appreciate it.
All right, great. Thank you for taking that on.
Thank you all three, especially. Thank you, everybody, for the
Yeah, this is something that's important. Like I said, I just hear good questions, comments, thoughts. I think that something really strong to come out of this. All right, let's go back to business, which first order of business, the FY22-049, release of trustee acceptance of funds, release for restrictions and covenants, declarations and restrictions for 1185 Pleasant Street, which is where they build the new fire department. A lot of that stuff isn't necessarily the concern of the finance committee. I guess the quick acceptance of funds, Lori, is that the 80,000 for? Did I see that amount? That's the acceptance of funds part. You're on mute, Lori.
Yeah, I'm looking. 80,000. Sorry.
I know when I read through the doc, I saw some $80,000 maybe for the park plan that's going to be there and a sign.
I think so. There's a Tools Memorial Trust that the towns had been holding in trust. I'm really not that familiar with this order, so I just know that there's a Tool family trust that they were releasing so that the fire station could be there. I think.
No, I did see that. Yeah, that's part of it. The releasing the covenants, Sullivan suicide in 2022. I saw all that. Yep.
Yeah.
And the restrictions that are on the land. Like I said, I was just curious of what for the finance committee, I would think that the acceptance of funds would be the part that we.
Yeah. I honestly, I wasn't familiar with this one. I can tell you that the Tool Trust has like 115,000 in it with interest. So that's been sitting there since 95.
Well, that could be from the original 80,000 then, I guess.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Mr. Wood, do you have any idea of what that? You're on mute too.
Yep. So I'm sorry, I missed a little bit that. By the way, I just sent Josh an email back from the earlier discussion. So Josh, if you want to send that to the committee members, just so they see a little bit of background on the track discussion. I'm sorry, you were asking about the 80,000 for I think it's a conservation restriction. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's just in the release of trustees. One part of it says acceptance of funds as part of the order.
I'm sorry. Yes, I do know. So the trust itself that the property was held in still has $80,000 in reserve that was intended to use for the recreation portion of it. But of course, until this point, it's never been used. So the release of those funds is intended to be used for the walking trails and some of the other pieces that are behind the fire station. So this is basically the trust is now just they've held the money up until this point, and then they're just turning it over.
Okay,
and we accept it.
No, the towns has the money, I think.
Well, it's been in the town, yes. It was actually gifted to the town, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
120.
Any questions, comments from the committee at all?
Just a quick comment. This feels like, in the spirit of the previous conversation, that the funds has been returned. So just some thoughts that I'm just sort of internalizing based on this new order. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think any funds have been returned here. The trust was
they
turned them over to the town because the town will be maintaining the park long term. Correct? There's no moving back and forth going on here.
No.
Okay, thank you for the clarity.
Anybody else? Chair will consider a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you, MJ. Second from Rig. Josh, if you could do a roll call, please.
Nate.
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
Julie.
Aye.
MJ.
Aye.
Rig.
Aye.
Brian.
Aye.
Steve.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
All right, thank you, everyone. Moving along here, FY 23-050, capital plan, leasing obligations. We can see that we're moving money from one of our stabilization funds to cover liabilities that we have. Any questions for Lori, comments on this?
The reason we're having this will be the fiscal 24 payments of the already obligated leases. And the reason why we're moving these out so that we'll make sure that these payments are secured before we do the other capital transfer that will be coming before you. That has been, I guess, held up in the queue. Town manager should have more on that.
How much is in this fund right now, Lori?
2.7. It's 2.7 million right now, 2.762.
Thank you. And these are leases that we have obligations on.
Yes. I'll be happy to provide the backup projects for the newer members if they want to see, you know, what will be becoming before them for new projects. But these ones, as you can see, the fire engine will be paid off next year. So one of the Freightliners.
Okay. I see body camera here for the police.
Yes.
So I see the old high school purchase part of the payments that we're making. High school. Okay.
The old high school, yeah. Nate, you broke up a little bit.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, we all seem to be tonight. Okay, any other questions, comments?
Yeah, so I have a question. The numbers that are at them, like that 5 out of 5, 3 out of, is that 3 out of 5 payments? 3 out of, or is that the ending year? Like what do those numbers represent?
Yeah, it's the term of the lease. So it's 5 out of 5. So that's the last payment, 3 out of 5. So yeah, that's how that goes.
Thank you.
Good question, Julie. Anybody else? Okay, not hearing any other questions or comments. Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, MJ.
Second, Eric.
Second from Eric. Thank you, Eric. Josh, if we could do a roll call, please.
Nate.
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
Julie. MJ.
Aye.
Rig.
Aye.
Brian.
Aye.
Steve.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
All right, great. Thank you, everyone. Moving on to our last new business, FY23-051 transfer order, restoration of the Parthenon frieze. I hope you had a chance to do it. This is coming from the CPC. They have done their due diligence. I believe it's $18,000 that's being allocated to this project. And you know, as I read through it, I guess that the company that originally cast these for the town or for the McAllen is still in business, so they can actually do the restoration, which is pretty new. Any questions, comments, thoughts? And this is coming from the CPC, so this is coming from the special fund that's set up for that, which I'm sure you've all seen it in your property tax bills.
I have a question, Nate, on it says local cultural council potentially 4,000.
Yep.
Something about inquiring timing difficulties anticipated potentially. Yeah. So what if that 4,000 doesn't come from them? Where would the other 4,000 come from?
Good question.
I'm sorry, I have so many sometimes.
No, you know, I saw the same thing, Julia. I saw that on there. And I didn't see any indication that they had received it either. So I was going on the assumption that they weren't going to get it. You know? And they did too, but I could be wrong in that assumption. You know, Lori, at all?
I don't think that the local culture council paid that, but I didn't see any payment go through on it. So I'm not sure.
So I mean, is the whole project really 22 and someone else is going to have to pick up that 4? Or
that's what it looks like to me. Well, it says it's 50,000 expected.
Right.
Yeah,
I
I'm
guess
so
at the same time, Julie, we see it. If they need another 4,000, so it's it's going to cost.
I know, like
yeah.
percentage wise, it's not, you know, I'm just,
Yeah, it's not huge. I hear.
I think they're usually pretty good on what their costs as far as a CPA would pay. I think anything left, you know, they're going to get this portion of it done because they know they can get it done. So I'm not really sure about the rest of it.
Yeah, you know, as I look at the breakdown here, it even includes transporting it to Woburn. A restoration of $1,600 each, and it has the mounting too. So it looks like the total cost is $18,000 for the freezers. I see the picnic pavilion is also on here, but it must be a different order from the CPC. So we're just dealing with one part of it, the other part of it right now.
I mean, it's.
I see restoration 9,600, transportation 4,000, mounting 400, so a total of $18,000. So that looks like what this is for, Julie, is just for this portion of it, this part of it.
I know, but I guess in the spirit of what the discussion we just had for however long we had it, it's a portion, but we don't know what it's going to cost us in the, is this the only thing we're going to be responsible paying for the project? And if the project, how do we know it comes to completion if someone else doesn't pay their part?
Yeah, but you know, again, what we were talking about, moving funds and not being used for what they said and everything else. I get it, but at the same time, you know, this is the CPC. They have a pretty big vetting process. We all know. And what they do here. If you want more clarification, we can certainly get Julie. We can continue this, and we will send a question out via our secretary and find out.
Can I ask a question of Lori?
Sure, go right ahead.
Lori, when you pay out for a CPC item, I mean,
yes,
the funds are within Bridgewater, and you're paying out based on, you know, a project approval by the CPC.
mm-hmm.
The town council has to approve that money that the CPC is actually allocating, right?
Correct. Yes.
So in a project like this, wouldn't the vendor send you an invoice and you would just pay that? And based on the allocation, you can overpay it. It's not like the CPC can rearrange this, right?
No, so a budget would be put up within the CPA fund itself, and the CPA actually will review the bill, and then it's submitted through accounting, and it's, you know, the budget is checked that. I mean, they approve the bill before it comes through us, just to make sure that, I mean, someone always has to approve the bill. So there won't be more than 18,000 paid out of that account, though. Is that your question?
Well, yes, my question is, yeah, that we'll pay 18 out of that fund, but to your point, if they don't get the 4,000 that they're anticipating from somewhere else, is the town for the 4,000 and not the CPC portion of the town's out?
Yeah, whoever does the project, though, could make a request to the LCC, and then they'll send another check request to accounting from the LCC, and then we process it to whoever the LCC wants to process that payment to.
Okie dokie, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, anybody else? Thoughts, questions, comments? Not hearing any, the chair will entertain the motion.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, MJ.
Second.
Thank you, Brian. Josh, if we could do a roll call, please.
Nate.
Aye.
Eric. Julie.
No.
MJ.
Aye.
Rig.
Aye.
Brian.
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
All right, thank you, everyone. Moving on. Okay, so we have all excited about our new capital plan leasing. That's why I'm talking about, starting to get a little long here. Capital expenditure policy subcommittee. Moving on to B, which is FY23-5. Already had quick conversation resolution. I do have some notes written down. If you do a recommendation to this resolution, I will ask the secretary to add it as part of our upcoming finance meeting as a matter of course. So as we get information that's going to be coming in, because I know that we're supposed to be provided a whole breakdown of these funds and how much and everything else that's coming in the future. So I sort of move forward with it. Ask the secretary to schedule moving forward so we can discuss the information. Any thoughts, questions? Not hearing any, the chair will entertain a motion on resolution FY23-05.
Nate, I'm having a hard time hearing you. You're coming in and out. I apologize.
Yeah, that's okay. You know, everybody's, it seems like it's been a tough night into the place. So anyways, if we don't have any further discussion on this, the chair would ask for a motion.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Brian.
Second, Julie.
Thank you, Julie. We can call
Nate?
Brian.
Eric? Julie?
Aye.
MJ?
Aye.
Rig?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I know it's been a long evening. There's been some really great discussion, some awesome questions. So I guess the next item of business real quick is to look at our next date to meet. Josh, that would be, oh, and Josh, Secretary, if you could, like I said, I'll send you an email, but we will add that discussion to our agenda.
Yeah,
standing
definitely.
order for a while, so we can discuss the funds review resolution as the information comes in. And it looks like our next date would be
the 27th.
The 27th? Yep. Okay. So let's plan on Monday, April 27th at 7:30 p.m. Anybody else? Any other thoughts, questions? If not, we can do that most important motion of all.
Mr. Chairman?
Oh, go ahead, MJ.
Before we do that.
We're almost done.
You knew I was going to do it. You saw me.
I know.
So I actually just wanted to ask you, Mr. Chairman, if it's possible, when we're getting our invites for scheduling for the meetings, is it possible that the agendas can be sent under separate cover? I'm not sure if folks are having the same problem if they use Outlook that I am, that anytime the invite to attend the meeting has the agenda attached to it, it disappears from your inbox and you can't recover it for some reason. So I'm not sure if it's something that's probably the software issue on my end, but I was hoping that for sake of folks having copies of the agendas for their files, if they need them, if it could be sent under a separate cover.
Josh?
Yeah, I can, I'll send a calendar invite and a separate email as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you.
No other items from me.
Awesome. All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Rig.
Second.
Thank you, MJ. Josh, can you do a roll call, please?
Nate?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
MJ?
Aye.
Rig?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion was approved. The meeting is adjourned.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good night, everyone.